Lewis Hamilton has just detonated a bombshell that has sent shockwaves through Formula One and left the FIA scrambling for answers. Following the chaos at the Brazilian Grand Prix, the seven-time world champion unleashed a furious attack on Formula One's governing body, accusing them of inconsistency, incompetence, and bias in their decision-making. His words were sharp, direct, and impossible to ignore. For Hamilton, this wasn't just a rant after a bad day. It was a declaration of war against a system he believes is broken beyond repair. The Brazilian Grand Prix was supposed to be Hamilton's comeback weekend, a chance to fight back after a string of bad luck and questionable stewarding decisions in previous races. But instead, it turned into one of the most frustrating weekends of his Ferrari career. Starting from 13th on the grid, Hamilton barely made it through the first corner before disaster struck. A slight touch from Carlos Sainz, now racing for Williams, sent Hamilton wide and into chaos. Trying to recover, he collided with Franco Colapinto's Alpine heading up the hill toward the start-finish straight, breaking his front wing and forcing him to pit early. It was an unlucky start, but the real blow came seconds later when the FIA handed him a 5-second penalty for causing the collision. That penalty pushed Hamilton over the edge. Over the team radio, his fury erupted. "These guys are a joke. A complete joke," he snapped, his voice filled with disbelief. For Hamilton, this wasn't just about the incident with Colapinto. It was the latest example of what he calls the FIA's broken system. He argued that Colapinto had turned in too aggressively and that the contact was simply a racing incident, not worthy of punishment. The stewards, however, saw it differently, and their ruling ignited Hamilton's fury. After the race, his words were even harsher. He described the FIA's officiating as inconsistent, unpredictable, and detached from the reality of modern racing. "It's not about me," he said in the post-race interview. "It's about fairness. These decisions don't just ruin races, they ruin championships. There's no accountability, no explanation, and no consistency. We can't race like this." Hamilton's anger wasn't born in Brazil. It had been building for weeks. Just a race earlier in Mexico, he was slapped with a 10-second penalty after going off track during a battle with Max Verstappen, while other drivers in similar situations escaped without consequence. To him, that double standard was the final proof that the FIA's rule enforcement depends more on circumstance than logic. He had called for greater transparency back then, but Brazil showed him that nothing had changed. The Interlagos circuit, which had once been a place of triumph for Hamilton, became the stage for one of his most public explosions yet. The damage from his clash with Colapinto destroyed his front wing and floor, leaving the car almost undrivable. Hamilton reported losing nearly 40 points of downforce and described the SF-25 as a nightmare to handle. "It felt like the suspension was broken," he told the media afterward. "I had no chance. The car was undrivable, but I kept going because I wanted to finish for the team." Eventually, Ferrari called him in on lap 39 to retire the car. It was another DNF, another weekend lost to what he saw as avoidable chaos. For Hamilton, this wasn't just a disappointing race. It was symbolic of a deeper problem. Ever since the infamous Abu Dhabi 2021 finale, where a controversial FIA call cost him his 8th world championship, every questionable ruling seems to reopen that wound. And now, at Ferrari, he's facing those same frustrations again. When he called the stewards a complete joke, it wasn't just about the penalty. It was a message to Formula One itself. The sport's credibility is on the line. Ferrari's weekend went from bad to worse as Charles Leclerc was wiped out during a restart incident involving Kimi Antonelli and Oscar Piastri. Both Ferraris were out, leaving Mercedes to celebrate a huge double finish with Antonelli in second and Russell in fourth. The result was a humiliation for Ferrari and a heartbreak for Hamilton, who had entered the weekend determined to fight back after Mexico. Instead, he walked away empty-handed, frustrated, and convinced that the FIA's decisions once again shaped the narrative for all the wrong reasons. What makes Hamilton's outburst so powerful is that it's not just emotional, it's rational. His criticism isn't about wanting special treatment or leniency. It's about demanding consistency. He believes that rules should be applied the same way for everyone, and that drivers deserve to understand how decisions are made. "The FIA, it doesn't realize how much their calls affect us," he said. "We dedicate everything to this sport, and then one inconsistent call changes everything. It's exhausting. Behind closed doors, Hamilton's comments have reignited discussions among drivers and teams about the quality of FIA officiating. Several drivers have reportedly expressed similar frustrations, though most choose to remain silent publicly. Hamilton, however, refuses to stay quiet. His willingness to challenge authority has made him a divisive figure, admired for his courage by some, criticized for his boldness by others. But one thing is clear. He's forcing a conversation that Formula One can't ignore any longer. Ferrari team principal Frederic Vasseur summed up the mood perfectly after the race, calling it a weekend to forget. But for Hamilton, forgetting isn't an option. He apologized to his mechanics for the result, telling them he felt terrible for not bringing home any points. Yet his anger toward the FIA still burned bright. For him, Brazil wasn't just another unlucky race. It was proof that Formula One's trust between drivers and officials is eroding fast. As the dust settled over Interlagos, social media exploded with Hamilton's radio message looping everywhere. "These guys are a joke." Fans were divided. Some agreed with him, saying the penalty was harsh and that the FIA's rulings have become inconsistent. Others argued that he should have handled it differently and that his comments risked damaging the sport's reputation. Regardless of opinion, everyone agreed on one thing. Hamilton had forced the issue into the spotlight. The FIA, as usual, remained silent. No official response was issued to his comments, and that silence only fueled more speculation. Would the FIA investigate their own decision-making? Or would they brush off Hamilton's criticism as just another emotional reaction from a frustrated driver? What's clear is that Hamilton's bombshell has put enormous pressure on the FIA to prove its credibility. His words have sparked debate among fans, journalists, and drivers about whether Formula One's officiating has lost its sense of fairness. The tension between the drivers and the governing body, one of the oldest conflicts in F1, is flaring up again. Hamilton's remarks have also reignited questions about the future of the sport's relationship with its athletes. As one of Formula One's most respected and experienced figures, Hamilton's opinions carry immense weight. When he says the FIA lacks accountability, the entire paddock listens. His outburst might even push the FIA to rethink its approach, perhaps introducing clearer explanations for penalties or a more transparent review system. But for now, the divide remains wide. The timing of Hamilton's statements couldn't be more crucial. As the championship battles tighten and emotions run high, every FIA decision carries more weight than ever. Fans are already calling for reforms, and Hamilton's defiance could become the spark that drives real change. But if the FIA ignores his warnings, they risk losing the trust of both drivers and fans alike. Hamilton's message was brutal but honest. Formula One's integrity depends on fair and consistent officiating. Without that, the entire sport's credibility is at risk. As one of the most experienced and influential drivers in the history of the sport, Hamilton has made it clear that he won't stay silent. "I've been in this sport for a long time," he said. "I love it. But if we don't fix the way things are being run, we're going to lose what makes Formula One great." Now the question is whether the FIA will listen, or whether Hamilton's words will only deepen the rift between those who race and those who rule. His bombshell after Brazil might not just be another headline. It could mark the beginning of a new era in Formula One, one where drivers finally demand the accountability they deserve. And as the tension between Hamilton and the FIA grows, one thing is certain: this fight isn't over. It's just beginning.